It's just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds, the seas are just so incredibly hot, record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you. Global warming, climate change, leading to this and becoming an increasing threat for the Yucatan, including Mérida and Progreso and other areas there. Let's see if I can show you the latest. There's the Cat 5 information. Winds 160 miles per hour, moving east-southeast at 9 miles per hour. And on that track, you're going to notice that this system is going to come very close to the Yucatan, and the dirty side of this hurricane, folks, is on the right-hand side of its progress. So therefore, they're going to get the dirty side there. These communities, many of them, as you might imagine, many folks, in that area have just the very basics, nothing else but that. So it's going to be very tough. Now let's transition to Florida, because even though it is expected to weaken on approach, it is so incredibly strong right now that you're going to find it very difficult for it to be nothing less than a major hurricane when it makes landfall in Florida. And where it makes landfall is going to be crucial, because there and south of there, we're going to get a very high storm surge, which could be 12 feet deep. Now, the warnings and watches that you see on screen, there is a tropical storm watch for the Florida Keys. There is a hurricane watch for much of the Florida coast, as you can see, and inland locations too, as this hurricane is expected to go that way. Keep in mind, the impacts will extend beyond the cone of concern. What's fueling this intensification? Above normal sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, including some really hot waters right there where it's at right now, and also additional hot waters that would be in the loop current in the Gulf of Mexico. But what is going to weaken it? Well, what would weaken it is a dip in the jet stream that's coming from the central section of the U.S. and diving towards the southeast. It is going to create upper level wind shear. It's also driving a cold front. The cold front would eventually absorb Milton, and it would undergo an extratropical transition. It would become extratropical. What does that mean? It means that its wind field would expand. So as it crosses Florida, more sections of Florida are going to be affected.
Salutations, Curse Nation. My name is Wolf, and you're watching the Wolf Channel, spelled VVVLF. Rampaging its way through the Gulf of Mexico, Hurricane Milton is now aimed like a cannon straight at the west coast of Florida, threatening to obliterate Tampa and bring a second wave of absolute devastation to the southeastern states.
Damage a common sight in neighborhoods across the Tampa Bay area, debris piled up along the curb. It is a complicated process that's going to take months to clear in Pinellas County. The process is delayed for many because of strict rules from FEMA. 10 Tampa Bay's Chris Hurst talked to commercial haulers who say they have been turned away at the county landfill. Chris?
Dave, that's because in order for counties and cities to get their own aid from FEMA, they must document all the trash and make sure where it came from. That delay is frustrating commercial haulers now waiting in long lines at private landfills. Chris Nemeth owns and rents about a dozen trash trailers. And his wait list, days after Helene, is over 100 people.
That's for people that need one that can't get one, let alone the homes that I already have one at. They're asking that I empty it and bring it back.
Yeah, yesterday his work was upended when the county told him and other contractors they can't dump at the county landfill anymore.
Maybe some people returned and dumped in people's yards. Maybe they went and illegally dumped it somewhere. Maybe they did the right thing and went to an out-of-county facility.
FEMA disposal sites are only for residents. Otherwise, take it back.
They said return it to the homeowner and dump it in their yard. As you know, I own a fleet of dump trailers.
Stunned at that response, he went to Instagram to vent his concerns and is going viral in the Bay Area.
Why isn't Pinellas County just operating as a transfer station? If these smaller facilities are willing to do that, they're privately owned. They're doing that out of the kindness of their heart with a small, very small markup.
The county says its hands are tied because of FEMA rules requiring strict documentation and evidence for any payouts.
We have FEMA monitors that are required to follow these debris contractors and make sure every pile is truly storm-related debris before we can take it.
That's no comfort to Nemothy, who worries what will happen when more rain and storms hit.
This debris is going to float, end up in our waterways, end up back in people's homes, through people's windows. Or if we had a storm and we had winds and this debris is now airborne.
Yeah, but there's now even more incentive for counties and cities to do everything by the book. The White House said tonight that it is increasing FEMA's reimbursement rate from 75% to 100% of costs. Live in Pinellas County, Chris Hurst, 10 Tampa Bay.
With gusts of wind reaching speeds of up to 200 miles per hour and a storm nucleus only 3.8 miles wide, meteorologists are describing Milton as the most powerful storm that the Earth's atmosphere can produce.
This is not a Texas storm. For those of you that do have family and friends in the west central part of Florida, and I have my parents there, I have siblings, I have cousins, this is a big time storm that's going to be historic.
So nobody panic! It's only as bad as it can possibly get! It can't get any worse! Or can it? With America only 27 days out from the national election, all partisan sides are spending day and night doing damage control over the optics of such devastating hurricanes so close to voting day.
A vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or natural disaster hits.
From Kamala Harris doing a public appearance circuit and going on The View to blame the hurricane response under her own administration on Donald Trump, who's been out of office for an entire term now. Roll the clip.
Kamala, and I'm calling you Kamala because for all of those who are mispronouncing it, I want you all to know how to say it. But let's talk about something you would do different from Donald Trump. Right now, there is a monster storm barreling towards my state of Florida, a place that's still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Trump is lying, claiming that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from the areas where Republicans live, and that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Ironically, that is something he did in 2019. What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
It's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. So lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia and to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who, just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree. Days later, I met with her and her daughter. You can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed. I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives, and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband, her child lost her father. People are losing their home with no hope of ever being able to reconstruct or return. And the idea that somebody would be playing political games for the sake of himself, but this is so consistent about Donald Trump. He puts himself before the needs of others. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level, to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up. Absolutely. Especially in a time of crisis.
to her CNN 60 Minutes interview where people are claiming it looked like she decided to commit political suicide.
I'll tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
The Democrats appear to be in full panic mode. I'm beginning to wonder if their focus group dweebs decided the day Trump got shot that there's no way of winning the election anymore, so now it's just a game of running the worst campaign they possibly can and messing up the country as bad as possible before the election, so they can blame the aftermath on Donald Trump. Meanwhile, as Florida braces itself for Milton to make landfall Wednesday night, Ron DeSantis is refusing to answer the phone for his political rival.
And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this. No, and here's the thing. She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the President of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this, I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign. She's trying to get some type of an edge. She knows she's doing poorly, and so she's playing these political games. I don't have time for political games. I've got people whose lives are on the line. I've got people whose homes and their possessions are on the line, and we are focused 100% on that mission. I'm not worried about playing her political games, and so she is being selfish by trying to blunder into this when we're working just fine.
With all of this chaos happening simultaneously during the most divided election of modern American history, many Americans are justifiably nervous. The Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua has seen a long history of mass prison escapes, which have empowered their fugitive criminal leaders. After two major escapes during the Biden administration in 2022 and 2023, Tren de Aragua has quickly arose to become one of the most problematic and dangerous new criminal organizations to join the American underbelly of violent crime. In related news, in case you didn't hear about it, from an article at the end of July, Ishmael El Mayo Zambada, a historical leader of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, and Joaquin Guzman Lopez, a son of another infamous cartel leader, El Chapo, were arrested by U.S. authorities in Texas on Thursday, the U.S. Department of Justice said, on July 25th of 24. If you're not putting two and two together right now, allow me to help. The Sinaloan drug cartel has controlled the American-Mexican border drug routes for decades now, and with their leadership disintegrating under their feet, it's created a void to be filled by competing cartels. Now, I'm not here to virtue signal for the Sinaloan drug cartel, but I will admit the truth that they have served as a barrier from even worse cartels taking over their smuggling routes. Specifically, they're the only ones slowing down the production of fentanyl. as can be seen in this Wall Street Journal article where the Sinaloan cartel put out an official statement saying, quote, "Stop producing fentanyl or die." Many people have rightfully wondered, where the fuck is all this fent and xylazine coming in from? And here's my take. It's from the competing cartels of the Sinaloans. Such as these guys, the most brutal cartel on the planet, the CJNG, or the New Generation Jalisco Cartel, which is the first of its kind with its own SOGs, Special Operating Groups, with a reputation for beheadings. Roll the clip. Now back to the Sinaloans. The Sinaloan cartel built their empire as a Mexican farmers who decided to stick their middle finger at the feds and grow marijuana and opium illegally. And they used tactics of intimidation and brutality to achieve their goals and dominate the illegal drug market. And now, with their leaders arrested, the Sinaloa cartel is falling apart with infighting that is quickly escalating into a region-wide civil war. While this is happening on the west coast of Mexico, perhaps, you've also heard of what's happening in El Salvador. President Nayib Bukele has waged a full war against MS-13, vowing to cut the organization off at its neck, which although appears great with him incarcerating over 40,000 criminals in what is being described as one of the most futuristic mega prisons ever designed, it's created another void in another cartel to be filled by another cartel. Are you beginning to see how this works yet? I know you're asking yourself now, what the fuck does this have to do with the hurricanes, Wolf? Now, as we inch closer to our next presidency, with back-to-back historic storms promising to epically destroy our southern belt and a migrant crisis that is siphoning off resources needed for Americans who just lost everything and our crumbling infrastructure that hasn't been massively updated in 50 years, where is the money to rebuild? Karine Jean-Pierre stormed off her podium today when Peter Ducey pressed her about FEMA requesting more funding.
Let's head to the White House. Peter Ducey is asking questions of Karine Jean-Pierre. Let's listen.
Home, who are wrongfully detained and held hostage. And again, frankly, we have had an extraordinary record of doing just that. And that's going to be the president's top priority.
And on this issue of funding, the administration has money to send to Lebanon without Congress coming back. But Congress does have to come back to approve money to send to people in North Carolina. Do I have that right?
Here's what I'm going to be very clear about. The president and the vice president has had a robust whole of government response to this. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I said it at the top, more than $200 million that we have directly put towards survivors here for disaster help. And that's because of this president's commitment to make sure that we are there for communities that are impacted. We take this very seriously again. We take this very seriously. And before the hurricane hit, we pre-positioned more than 1,500 federal folks on the ground to help. And so we have made sure that every state has gotten their storm requested emergency declaration. They requested it, and we made sure they received it. We've taken this very seriously. More than $200 million that we have provided to the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous, Because then when folks on the ground hear that, they may not want to ask for the help that they need. That is there for them. That's our focus here.
But President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes,
Which
it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
To Congress that there's not enough money to help people in
We're
North
talking
Carolina
about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina.
And that's important, and people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together, they provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
From a letter that President Biden sent to Johnson, McConnell, Schumer, and Jeffries. The president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There is money that we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
That you don't like misinformation.
I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now there's going to be a shortfall, right? Because we don't know how bad Hurricane Milton is going to be. And so we're going to need additional funding. That's
exactly what I just asked about. And you said it was misinformation. Yes.
What you're asking me is why Congress needs to come back and do their job. That's what you're asking me. Congress needs to come back and do their job and provide extra assistance, extra funding to disaster relief fund. That's what Congress needs to do, and we're going to continue to urge that. You may not want that, but that's okay. That's what this president wants, and that's what the vice president wants. Thanks, everybody.
She blabbed on and on, dodging his questions, and just stating over and over again that Biden's administration has granted FEMA over $200 million, as if that means anything, when the damage toll of Hurricane Katrina was over $180 billion, and that was just one hurricane. Right now we are talking about a measly $250 million for two hurricanes that will probably cost 720 times as much in damages to multiple states. And so, here is how it relates to the cartels. Remember 2 videos ago when I asked, will the hurricane fuck up the vote? And will that be what sets off the next American Civil War? Well, the leading expert on cartel violence, Ed Calderon, claims that a civil war is brewing, and when it pops off, the 2 major factions are going to be the US government and the cartels. And though the war will break out on the Mexico border, and that will create a full-blown nationwide civil war of many factions all fighting each other after the initial destabilization occurs. He claims that the cartels are aware of this. They're very sophisticated in their intelligence core. It's not an agency, so I don't really know what you'd call it, but their ability to conduct espionage rivals that of the CIA and the NSA. They have moles in our government who are paid to leak information just like we have in theirs. And according to Ed, who knows his shit better than me, mind you, the cartels are already preparing for a civil war on American soil. They're gathering arms and recruiting in mass, and once Milton is done with its tantrum, I pray to God that our nation can show its strength and come together and unify, regardless of our partisan differences, to rebuild our communities before the shit really does actually hit the fan. The shit fan that Biden built back better. You're standing on the edge of a coin as it spins through the air right now. How it lands is going one of 2 ways, either the destruction of America or the rebuilding of the greatest nation on earth. I pray that everyone watching this is safe and alive Thursday morning, because Wednesday night will be one to remember and that you will wish you could forget. Hey, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. My channel is small and it is struggling. I got a strike like 6 months ago, and it seems like I've been shadow banned ever since because of it. But I'm doing everything I can to turn that around and build this channel into what I've always envisioned it as. I do all my own writing, filming, and editing, producing, and publishing. Your viewership is incredibly appreciated, and I hope that you share this video. I was in a horrific car accident last year and had one of my organs removed because of it. Those fuckers stole my spleen, and because of that, the whole past year has been a struggle. I need health insurance to survive, and the way our federal laws are, I'm unable to work at a decent job without losing my Medicaid. They won't allow me to earn over $13 an hour, so I've dedicated myself to journalism instead. You can support me by buying an official Make Americans Guerrillas Again shirt from my online store that launched yesterday. I've got limited edition black ones for $26 and OD green ones that will always be available for $17. Every penny from those goes towards helping pay my rent and also contributes to charitable efforts I am involved in with Kenya. But that's for another video. Thank you for your support. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And until the next time, stay cursed.